Welcome to another episode of Author Spotlight. And today, this is Judy Baker, book marketing mentor, and I am privileged to have Clare Biedenharn with me, and she's going to tell us about her book, which came out of her experience. So, if people were curious about your book, Clare, um, you know, why don't we back that up a little bit? Why don't you tell how you came into writing this book, because you have a very interesting background. That I know.
Yes, yes. Thanks, Judy. It's such a pleasure to be here. I am I my book, Heart to Heart. Sorry, I got a little. Um, I have been a chaplain for almost 25 years. I worked with as an industrial chaplain for over 10 years, and I used to climb around in oil rigs at a company that builds oil rigs in Mississippi, and then went to work as a critical care chaplain in New Orleans. And that was my love. And it didn't take me very long once I was there to figure out that having a lot of letters behind your name on your name tag was kind of a good idea there. So I began my work on Doctor of Ministry in Spiritual Direction from Garrett Seminary in Evanston. Well, I had to come up with a project. And so what I did was I taught critical care nurses a proven and effective model of listening, 400-year-old model of listening based on the Quaker listening model called the Clearness Committee. So anyway, the question was, would the use of this listening model impact patient care? And it did. It did, by golly.
Wow.
But we discovered that deep listening, intentional listening, leads to deep connection. And through deep connection, that leads to transformation, not just for the patient, but for the nurse as well. It was remarkable. And it was so cool because the nurses embraced it. They helped me design the study and they really embraced it. And I was just, it was a great experience. So
Oh,
that was in 2013 was when I did all that. And as I was defending my dissertation in Evanston, my husband I picked my husband up at a coffee shop in New Orleans in 1976, but he was diagnosed with terminal cancer.
oh,
So I boxed up all my work, sealed it up, and put it away. And he made me promise that I'd get back to it. And I did. And writing this book was really my grief work. It helped me get out of bed every day. And so it's just been the whole thing's been such an adventure because, well, one thing is I just thought you wrote a book. I didn't know you had to do all this other stuff.
yeah. Yeah, it's all the other stuff that lets people know that you wrote the book.
Yes, yes, an Amazon bestseller. It still does well in the nursing books. And then I've also written two workbooks. One is what we call a pandemic edition, is just based on this book. And
Mhm.
then what I have coming out shortly is another one based on the book, but exactly I teach the model of how to listen better. And mostly my heart lies with burned out nurses, burned out healthcare workers. And that's my mission, is to support them in any way I can. But I work individually with people, but then also companies have approached me. And there was an assisted living center in Virginia that contacted me and said, we're stuck in grief from 2020. How can you help us recalibrate?
Yeah.
And so just finished working with them, and I'm working on it's I just this was a gift to me. This whole idea was a gift to me, and I have to get the word out. It's my mission. It's my mission.
When you're talking about this idea of deep listening, maybe would you give us a little bit of an idea of how that differs from how people normally show up?
Yes, 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 yes. Well, I'm so glad you asked. The thing that makes this okay, so regular listening, you think about an onion and you pull the onion out and there's that dry skin. You
Yeah.
can kind of slap that out. Well, that's kind of listening. It's the kind of background noise where you don't really connect with what's going on. I think about this morning, I heard, while I had the TV going, probably heard commercials for 10 different products. I can't tell you what it was, any of them were.
Yeah.
The next layer type of listening would be like, think about if you're going to look, I lived in Louisiana a long time, so everything comes back to food. So you're getting ready to.
I'm a foodie too, so
Oh,
I'm fine
good.
with that.
So think about when you slice that onion in half, if you look at it sideways, you can see how the layers get closer and closer together until finally there's that very center where there's no, there aren't any rings. It's just the heart of it.
Mm-hmm.
So with listening, deep listening is that you're going deeper than just that top stuff. When you deep listen, okay, the outer layer, let's say you're listening with your ears.
Yeah.
Deep listening is listening with your heart.
Mm.
And that is when you're totally focused on the other person and giving them all you got. The Chinese have a symbol for listening, and I don't know if you can see.
Yes. Yep.
And actually, it's one big symbol, but it's comprised of these other smaller ones.
Yes. Yes.
And so the other ones, so they're saying, so basic listening, good active listening includes your ears, your eyes, giving your full attention.
Mm-hmm.
One of the symbols, royalty. You treat the person as if they are important. But the fifth step that I think really differentiates this from most listening models that, sales rep, anybody. I was talking to somebody who works for the cable company and I did a presentation. He said, everything you talked about good listening, I had in a 2-day class, except the one that talks about listening with the heart.
Uh-huh.
So when we listen to our heart, we resonate. And, we talk about empathy, and empathy is a wonderful thing, but empathy is really more centered on the head. It's like you're trying to figure out, but compassion is when you resonate with the heart. And really, compassion wants you to understand what's going on, but also that's what moves you to action.
Oh my gosh. Well, I was so intrigued by this idea. I know now I know that you told me this was the process of writing the book helped you process your grief
Yeah.
when your husband passed. And it's even more than that because I had cancer in 20 I was diagnosed at the end of 2013 and my treatment ended in 2014. Fortunately, mine was completely treatable.
Oh, that's great.
But you know what? It still altered everything about me. And you had a talent to be able to not only be present, but you also had the presence to help your husband and to help the caregivers around him.
Yes, yes. Oh man, we were really blessed to find some wonderful caretakers, but what you said that little memory bubbled up from the depths. I remember one time, my husband was from Vicksburg, Mississippi, the Gibraltar of the South. And we lived in the South, and we just had a good traditional marriage. But one day, when he'd been in this treatment for a while, and he didn't call me the word that starts with a B and ends with an H, but he kind of circled around. He would never have done that. That
Yeah.
wasn't like, he was kind of circling around that. And I said, James, I'll tell you what, your illness has changed you and it's changed me because I've become the person I needed to be to fight for you. And I'm not going back. Yeah.
That is so true. That is so true.
Yeah. It's just it's life altering for everybody. It is.
It is. And the thing I learned, um, and it wasn't until many years later, but, and you probably have come across this, the idea of post traumatic growth, not post traumatic
Woo!
stress.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I went, oh,
Whoa.
yeah.
Whoa. Yes. 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 Yeah.
It,
These challenges, and that's the thing. Like with the book, I thought I was telling one of my sons one day, and he called, and I was having a bad day. I was stretched out on the couch. Robbie's in the army, sat all this training on suicide prevention, and he goes, "Mother, get off the couch." Yes, sir. Okay, okay. But I told him, I said, look, I had a choice. I could have curled up on the sofa and waited for James to come get me. I could have done that. But
yeah.
I felt like my message was too important to give up.
Having gone through this myself and knowing what it's like, and I've had friends who passed, um, during the pandemic, which was the craziest thing in the whole world.
I'm
You know,
so sorry. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's just really nuts. But I think having having your skill to be showing people that there is a way to connect that helps you, helps everyone around you, and that, you know, in the medical care system, people aren't intentionally trying to cause harm. They're,
No. Yeah.
but sometimes the way that they go about delivering what they're doing is not helpful.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you've given people, both families and caregivers and professional medical people, the tools they need so that they can all have a better result, focusing on each other and on, the health and well-being of people who are ill.
Well, I think I won't say I can't say most, but I know a whole lot of healthcare professionals who have been feel a call to this work. This is something that the stories are like they help take care of their grandma or I
Yeah.
mean, it was something they always knew. And I think that this awful, terrible, challenging time that they're working in, where the the profession they love and they're so proud of has been changed dramatically. But when I worked with them, I had tried to help them remember their why, because I think the why can help sustain them. And burnout's a big deal, and but trying to help them remember those good old self-care things that they already know. And that's the thing. This listening model is
Mm-hmm.
based on two premises. One, that we all have wisdom within. There's a spark, a divine spark in all of us that is mighty smart, but usually we don't listen to it. That's that intuition. It's just no,
Yeah.
no, I'm going to walk down this dark alley,
Right.
but and then the other premise is that when we are in community, when we're and I'm of the Christian faith, so I say, Jesus promised us wherever two or three are gathered in His name, He's there. So okay, so if it's you and one and the person you're talking to, well, you got somebody else there too to just listen to. But anyway, if you can work in community by asking open, honest questions, staying on task to what it is the person's trying to resolve, then so many times that they've got the resources. You're just helping them remember what they are.
It's not always about trying to fix something. Sometimes people just need to be heard.
Yes, 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 yes. Yes. I have to tell you something. So, in the pandemic, once I got up here, it was terrible. Within a year, my mother died, my husband died, my dog died. So
Ah,
anyway, in the middle of the pandemic, I decided I was going to get a cat, and I called the pound, and
yeah.
I have a new cat. But one day, I felt really, really bad and down, and so I thought, and it was the anniversary of James's death, and but I was like restless, kind of just walking around all day. And I thought, I'm just going to stretch out and cry it out and get it over with. Well,
Yeah.
this cat that I hardly knew me was so cool. She came over and sat on my chest while I sobbed. And she's like, it's almost like she's, riding the waves. And then when I was finished, she got up and walked off. And I just smiled. I said, her name's Ruthie. I said, Ruthie, in my biz, we call that the ministry of presence. She was there just to have another person there with you,
Oh, my,
or cat.
that is so beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. Now, I I'm going to ask a question, but I don't know if there is something else like this. Are there any other books like your book?
Well, that's if you Google deep lessening nurses,
Mm-hmm.
I show up on the first Google page.
Ooh.
And there really aren't. I think that there's people are more open to this, and but that was the challenge when I was doing the research because here I was walking the fence between the clinical world and the theological world,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't always speak the same language, and so it was kind of like sometimes I did kind of dip one side when I had it, but but there are. And the thing that was really, really important to me, Judy, was when I finished the project, I thought, oh, well, I will write a journal article, be peer reviewed, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then I thought, you know what? That'll get lost. And so wanted to have a book that was easy to read. And I write for Guidepost too. So I had that in fact, I just have in this month's edition, one of my stories is printed about how I fell asleep and missed the plane to Rome. But I had a good week in New York anyway, but that's another story.
Oh my gosh.
But I wanted a book that people could pick up on their break or keep it a copy in the bathroom or just something that would be very, very accessible.
Right.
The other thing that's been really interesting is several people who have called me said, I know you work in healthcare, but would you consider working in a field outside? And I'm working with a couple of the executives who are not in healthcare, but are still, this has been a terrible time. We're all learning this new world. And if I can just sit there and be a companion, I'm glad to do it.
All of the things that are swirling in my head right now, I mean, are you are you doing training for healthcare professionals, or what are you doing, now that you have these tools that are concrete in your hands? How are you sharing the love?
Well, I work with individually, and my website is yourlisteningpartner.com. And that can give you an idea of what I do. I work individually with people where I have how this marketing stuff. I have my package where I can work with we've come up with a set number of times that we can meet,
Yeah.
we can meet individually. And then the other thing is that I've been working on is what I call the 3 R's. So I have to use my little sheet here. I
Oh,
get
please do.
reflect, reconnect, restore. And that's what I use with the groups. And so the idea is the first thing you got to do is grieve. What has happened, our world has changed, we're not going back.
No.
It's And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Before the pandemic, and we were all so busy, and I mean, at least we got learned how to sit down and eat together, again. What I do is walk people through the grief. I call and invite them to write out the story that they've never told.
Oh.
And with that, then we have a little process where we release that. And so I guess the first part of it is almost like a triage, because, if you don't, listen, this is so cool. There's something called the rule of 10. After natural disasters, like that, first, you think about Katrina and the people on top of the sitting on roofs waiting for rescue.
Yeah.
That immediate time, the amount of time it takes for that initial response is going to take 10 times that to go to the next level of the initial recovery. That amount of time, it takes 10 times longer than that intermediate time to come to complete recovery. So based on that formula, initially recovery was going to take a decade. However, in a study done, I think at year 8, they discovered that through intentional support, that they were much further along in their recovery than they were expecting to be. So with this type of training, with this type of support, then I can help people move along in their grief and in their recovery. There's something called second victim syndrome that is a result of healthcare workers who have been involved in an incident where a patient was harmed. And the result of it is similar to combat veterans, like PTSD. I mean, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. So they're saying that people respond in one of 3 ways when this happens. One, they leave healthcare altogether,
Which we're seeing just in droves.
Yeah. And then another way they respond is to just numb out and soldier on and just. But there's another group that uses this as a transformation to a different, like a springboard. Like how can I reshape what I'm doing?
Yeah.
How can I make it better? Yeah. And so really that's kind of what I try to address with the groups and bring them along. Listen, I was laughing because the other thing I'm really interested in is something I call vibrational leadership. And that's how the leader sets the tone for the whole group. Colin Powell said, even addressed that and said, and so I bring a little bit of that in there too. Listen, the other day, somebody asked me about what I was doing, Judy, and I was laughing, and I was like, and then I laughed. I thought, well, you can tell I live by myself. I'm not running the car, in the carpool. I'm not cooking for anybody. I'm just sitting here thinking, and petting the cat.
But you're also sharing something that is super valuable, and I can see, how you're making an impact, not just in your family, but you're looking at your community and you're looking beyond your community. And I think this is the perfect time for this because people are ready to go, oh, what we were doing didn't quite do it. And now how do we move forward? And I'm hearing that in every aspect of my life, from what happened with businesses, what happened with individuals, we got a reset. Maybe we didn't want to have a prolonged reset, but we got a reset. Now, if people want to work with you, they can go to your website, but are you doing any public events where there might be training, or how else are you getting the word out there to people?
Well, I think I appreciate you asking that because I really I haven't felt comfortable like you learn this is a whole different way of doing business.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's just it's been that's been a challenge. So I think that it's a lot of my hesitation has been I've been shy about sharing this. And I've been really, it's been kind of hard for me to step out and actually do this. But I am, and that's, I didn't realize how much I depended on my husband to be my cheerleader. And, and he would say, I'd go, well, let me tell. So I wasn't going to go. When I was getting ordained in the Methodist Church, there's an alternate way where you don't have to go away to seminary, but you do have to take some seminary classes.
Yeah.
Well, so I did my little classes, and I was like, but you don't have to have a degree. So anyway, and I was like, oh well, I'm done now. I don't maybe and but I didn't have the degree, and I'm just not going to do anymore. And a couple of weeks later, James walked in, he stretched, he goes, now when's registration?
Oh, little subtle hints to do
Yeah.
that.
So to answer your question, I'm in, I'm about ready to get that part together.
Okay.
But right now, I do work with companies and I do work with individuals.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of feeling my way because the thing is, it's been a challenge to define the need because what I do is pretty subtle. Like this one person I'm just talking to, and he's very clinically minded. He's a CNO, and he's like, I just don't quite get it. Now tell me. And so trying to find the language to encapsulate what I do has
Yeah.
been a challenge, but I'm in the process. I'll put it that way. But
Okay.
I do work with companies and I do work with some individuals.
Well, I love it. I mean, part of what I got exposed to, and I've only done a little bit. Um, I had ovarian cancer, and there was a real lack of understanding by regular, like your internist, your general practitioner, nurses. They didn't even know what the symptoms were. And so many, I was fortunate. I had like a brilliant doctor. So, as soon as
Wow.
I was sick, and we found out what was going on, he got me all hooked up with the right people. And I live close enough to UCSF, which has one of the best treatment centers in the world.
Uh-huh.
However, I am not typical because I ask a lot of questions, and I did through the whole thing. And so many stories I've heard was, oh, your gynecologist, they didn't know, either, so they're dismissing you.
Yeah.
Or, oh, you're too young for this, or oh, you're too old for this, or this, that, and the other. And UCSF has a really brilliant model. It's got integrative medicine. They really listen to patients as well as to the doctors. And Dr. Munter, who started the BRCA, the hereditary
Wow.
cancer clinic, she's BRCA. Her dad was, and all of this stuff got discovered. But there is a program with patients. This isn't through UCSF, but this is through through one of the cancer organizations where patients go to talk to nurses, doctors, and tell our stories. This is what happened to me. Here's how we discovered I had cancer, and here was my journey as I
Mm-hmm.
was going through it.
Mm-hmm.
And I can still remember, this is before lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
I was with two of my friends, and we were telling our stories, and this was for nurse practitioners. I was in. I'm picturing a bunch of 20 somethings in the room.
Yeah.
We had everything from kids who
Yeah.
were, that was their first
Yeah.
career, to people, this is their second or third career. So there was a room of 100 people listening intently to our stories.
Yeah.
And they asked the best questions. I was blown away. And plus, they got to see, oh, we don't all look alike. We don't all present the same way. Some people are asymptomatic. Some people are like totally,
Mhm.
trashed and on the floor. And it made me feel very hopeful that this group of caregivers, because I think of them as caregivers, that they're going to
Okay.
be able to go out there now and they're going to listen a little differently than they would have had they never had the experience of talking to real life
Surviving.
survivors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and something else is that type of listening can affect the bottom line for the hospital. The survey that is sent, Medicare survey that is sent out
Oh.
following
Yep.
a hospital visitation, the second question of I think it's 20 something questions. Second question, did your nurse listen to you? Question number 4, did your doctor listen to you? And that's part of that value-based patient payment care, and that can
Yeah.
affect what kind that results of those surveys are part of the formula, how much the hospital is going to get paid.
Oh, well, we have a small hospital here in Sonoma, but every time you have anything done, they follow up with a survey, and the same thing with my doctor's office too. And I think it's just really incredible
Yes.
the changes that I've seen. And in fact, one of the oncologists, very well known and very well respected, I met with him. Was it my second? I think it was my first or second visit, and I went, I don't want to see this one again. My
Mhm.
husband and I both just went, nope, I don't care. He's really smart in terms of being a clinician,
Yeah.
but he had absolutely no, you know, I felt like I was bothering him. And I'm
Mhm.
sorry, I never had cancer before. So if you're asking me questions and I want to know the answers to my questions, I just felt very dismissed. So I think what you're doing has a much broader application. So I want to keep talking to you about that too. Now, what would you, if you could, oh, well, you've told us some really interesting things about yourself. If you wanted one person, anybody in the whole world, to get the message of heart to heart, who would that be?
I'd like to see my book at the hands of every nurse in the world.
I like that. Well, I think I've got some ideas on how that could just start happening, because I think you've got a great story. I think your approach is so, I mean, my goodness, how many people, hard hat and soft
Yes.
heart, you really have it all to offer to people.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, and I'm blessed. Look, I've been lucky, but I've worked really hard on this. But also, this whole thing is a blessing to me. In fact, the other day, my son said, Mom, you can't, you got to stop giving this stuff away. I said, but this is my ministry. And he said, Mom, you're doing all this other business stuff that you're paying for. So you really, it's okay to charge. And it's been that, and I think too that asking about the training,
Yeah.
that's been a big mind shift, because I'm a minister. I mean, and this is my ministry. However, to maintain the ministry, then I have to charge. So anyway, that's been a big stepping up and claiming it has really been
Yeah.
a big, and saying, being able to feel comfortable being called Dr. Clare, that was a big thing for me. I just like, who's the grown up in the room if you're talking that
Oh
way?
my gosh. Oh my gosh, that is just so sweet. Well, I will make sure that we include your website on the recording, and so people will be able to get in touch with you. Is there anything we've not covered that you want to share with folks?
I think that it's all I would say is that the hard part about listening is to remember to be intentional. So many of my nurses, they would say, like in the study, and I was asking the questions, and some of them would just say, "I'm sorry, I can't remember." We get into habits. We get into habits of the way we listen, and so many times, what we're doing, we're not listening. We're listening. We're preparing our answer to what somebody has said rather than listening. So in a way, you're kind of behind a step, but it's your attention shows your intention to listen, and it's a blessing. I mean, everybody, we all win if we all listen better. We all win.
That is beautiful. Well, I have to be honest, this has just been so delightful. You just made my job easy. I didn't have to, I think I asked you one thing and you went through everything I wanted to know. And it just, I mean, you have, I think anyone would be honored to have you as a guest to talk about what you learned through your journey and how it can transform lives, not just in healthcare, but all over the place. And we certainly, I wish we could just have a magic wand and give this to some of our world leaders right this minute because I think they're not listening.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I and the thing is, this listening model. Parker Palmer is educator, philosopher who's really opened my eyes to the Quakers and their way of listening. But it's just so important to be able to not limit ourselves to, like, well, I'm in healthcare, I can't do this. I'm in teaching. This is my track. This is my track.
Yeah.
Because this type of listening it's bigger than any particular profession, and it's been used in business, in healthcare, in education for 400 years.
Wow.
It's proven and effective.
It is absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and oh, I know what I forgot to ask.
What?
If someone wanted to get a copy of your book, how might they do that?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. It's available on Amazon,
Hmm.
and it's
Yes, yes, you're going to get good at doing that.
yeah, I'm trying to get the glare off of it. Heart to heart, spiritual care through deep listening. And if the book speaks to you at all, I would really appreciate a review. Um, that is apparently, I'm at 53 reviews so far,
Good for
but
you.
something magical happens in the Amazon jungle if you hit 100. So I don't know what it is, but I know it's some kind of goal I'm trying to reach for whatever reason. So anyway, and then also I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, all that stuff. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome. Well, I'm going to make sure that we're connected on LinkedIn. And
Thank you.
yes,
I'm
there is
looking
this
forward to it.
algorithm that happens when you hit 100 reviews on Amazon, then your book starts popping up. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So that's the
And
goal
I
here.
really, it's been a bestseller. I mean, it's still, I think, considering there 40 jillion books on there, I usually stay in the bottom hundreds, and I think that's pretty good. So
Oh, that's remarkable. Well, Claire, it has been a delight.
thank you, Judy. Thank
I
you.
I definitely want to stay in touch with you, and I want to thank everyone for watching Author Spotlight. And this is Judy Baker, Book Marketing Mentor, and I'll see you in the spotlight soon.